So a question that I always like to ask myself is, what direction is the light coming from in relation to the position of the characters? Okay, and this is always an important question to ask yourself. I always ask myself this: where is the light direction coming from? Whether I'm studying a painting, a film still, or whatever it might be, right? Um, and just to, give a fun, this is from Hans Bacher's book, but you can see, I'm not going to get into this. This is like a whole other lesson that I have, but you can see that the direction very much indicates, like, of course, tied to mood as well, right? Whether a person is, rim lit from either side, whether they're top lit, semi top lit, underlit, blown out, not so blown out, low key, mid key, low key, high key, right? So just to give you a snippet of the variety of ways you can light everything. Okay. Now, I do want to show some film stills of mid to high key paintings. Okay, so let's first look at Blade Runner. Right now, Blade Runner here, how does this tie into the story? He's in a sterile environment. There's a key light source coming from the top. It's actually a soft light, right? And I don't go over soft and hard light. That's another lesson that I have that I go over more in my mentorships. But just know that it's not very a hard source of light. It's a softer light that seems to just envelope the whole room. And because of that, it's a very broad, soft light. There's also a lot of fill light going into his face. Its face is making his face quite evenly lit. Okay, so there's not a lot of contrast. Now, I could easily tweak this. Let's say I was like, I want to change up this a little bit. I like to use level, so I do this as any starting point. And let's say I just wanted to add, oh, that's too dark. Let's say I wanted to add more contrast, just a little bit more. Using adjustment layers is a really fast, fun way to start exploring different ways. Let's say the light is coming from the top now. Okay, so light's coming from the top, and his nose is going to be, actually, his nose is going to be lit right there. That his face is going to cast a shadow. Oops, sorry. His face is going to cast a shadow on his chin. The whole background. Ooh, my computer's lagging. It's too big. The whole background. All right, let's use another brush. Now we've literally changed the value structure very quickly, right? Now I understand where my light's coming from. I'm kind of mimicking a top light poorly, quickly. But now that I do that, I can push it even more. And you can do this with anything. I do this with photos when I'm about to do a gouache painting. Now, what does that make you feel? That's a totally different mood from before, right? And I did it in 2 seconds. So you can play with a variety of lighting skills, lighting scenarios just like this. I'm going to delete that. A lot of, comedy shows are actually lit quite evenly. So there's quite a lot of fill light. You can see that in her face. Yes, her face is in shadow, but it's not very dark. Her face is it's very evenly lit. That's what it is. It's, for lack of a better word, boring, I guess. I like drama. I tend to go to low key and more contrast, but it's very great for evenly lit scenes, right? So for example, here that would be a mid key with a key light being a natural source of light and some fill light hitting this dumb side of the characters' faces. Okay. Here's another one right here, completely overcast. Now this is a natural setting, so it's just overcast, and overcast is just this giant soft dome of light. So you can see that there's little to no shadows. I mean, there's always shadows, but there's not a lot of contrast. It's very low contrast on their face, right? And you'll see a marked difference when we go to low key. So here, Cold War, this is definitely a higher key painting, right? And this is a beautiful film. It's completely in black and white. And I just love this because you can see there's definitely some, when they do photography and they have that like bounce light thingy, I forgot what you call it, like a to lighten the shadows up. I don't know if any of you guys do photography, but portrait photography, to get that glow on someone's face, you have these like white boards to bounce light into someone's face, and you can see, her face is very evenly lit. There's there's a high amount of fill. The key light is very soft. It's this kind of sunlight, right? There's not a lot of harsh contrast. And here as well from the same scene, right? I would say it's basically like a strong one source of hard light, and it kind of just eliminates a lot of harsh shadow on her face because of the spotlight. And here's just a high key landscape painting just to show you. This is also from Cold War. This movie is called Cold War. And this is just also to show you how simple a scene can be, but how it can make you feel because of the composition. It's because of the simplified value structure. It makes you feel like it's bleak, you're alone, you're in this middle of snowy place of nowhere. I just love how simple the composition is, but how evocative it is at the same time. 2 values, right? 3 values, whatever. Let's simplify it to that. Some from her, right? So from her, you can see that these two are, flashback a little bit more higher key. Just toggle back and forth, mid to high key, right? But you can see the colors are less bold here. So just touching that color a little bit, it's more pastel, whereas this, he's surrounded by color, but it's very artificial. He's still very lonely, right? If you've watched the movie Her. So it's almost symbolic in that sense. He's covered by all these loud colors, but he's largely dressed in pastels, right? Now we'll go to low key. Okay, so No Country for Old Men, some examples here. Now you can see how the key light source, you can see a lot more directly. Wherever that's coming from, we're going to assume it's street lights because we can see bokeh street lights. However, there's little to no fill light lighting his dumb side, right? That's what creates the mystery. And I just love the shapes that are created in a silhouette. The way the shapes are on his eye socket, his cheekbone, beautiful edge control right there. And so that's little to no fill light, right? This one is 1917, another brilliant movie, great for cinematography. I love this one. There's nothing on him. He's just in shadow. Okay. But he's running through this chaos. He's just running through. And then you come here, and now he's being hit by a little bit of light, but there's no fill light in his shadow. It just almost makes him look gaunt, like a ghost, like he's just running through. If there was fill light and the shadows were lightened, it might not convey the same mood. This part of the story, it's just so, there's bombs going off, right? It's crazy. So you want to create that drama, that sense of danger, right? And that high contrast, I tend to think, creates that sense of danger, emergency. Also the simplified color palette. There's not a lot of colors going on. It says amber. It's amber and black, almost shadows, almost similar to Breaking Bad, right? You see the light on dark silhouette on the character in the back, right? They're just running through. This scene, if you look at it on YouTube, it's a really cool lit scene where there's like this, I don't know how they lit the set, but it basically is really cool. I referenced this scene for some color keys for Marvel, for one of the episodes on What If. We called it the 1917 scene.
Tiffany, we have a quick question from Gil, if that's okay.
Yeah.
He says, how much do you plan color-wise for a painting? Do you determine the key light color and the fill light color beforehand?
Yes and no. It depends on, what specifically that scene dictates. So for example, if that scene is taking place outdoors, I know that my key light's going to be, it's a sunny outdoor scene. That already, simplifies it for me, right? I know my key light is going to be the sun. That's not actually yellow. It's more of a neutral light source. And then if it's outdoors, I know that my fill light's it's not going to be too dark. It doesn't make sense if your fill light, your shadows are too dark on a sunny day, right? So a lot of times the environment and the time of day will dictate that for me. Now, if you're working on a show like Marvel, which has superpowers, like in every episode, like that's going to inform the color of your key light, right? You have whatever Wanda, sorry, I don't know Marvel characters, so I'm going to butcher a lot of these names. I worked on the show and I don't sadly watch a lot of Marvel movies, so I'm just throwing it out there. But you have red colors, like their superpowers will dictate their the key light, right? So, for example, you have Wanda having a face off with Spider-Man, then Spider-Man might be rimlet in Wanda's red color, right? So that's going to inform that. So it really depends on each scene, how artificial or how natural it is. Like if you're going to paint an outdoor scene, then you're probably going to be dictated by, oh, is it sunset? Is it sunrise? Is it afternoon? That's why plein air is so important. Um, and if you guys want, I can maybe show you guys some stuff. Granted that Julie, you don't leak this all over. It's only for paid people. I'm technically not allowed to show work, but just to show you how, I would think, I'll see. But if it's indoors, I'm asking myself, okay, what's the main source of light? Is it like an interrogation lamp? Is it a warm lamp by a couch? So these are the questions I'm asking myself, and that's how I determine the temperature and the strength of the light. Does that make sense? I'm gonna take that as a yes. So here you can see in Walter White, you can see the key light is somewhere top. I'm not sure where he is, definitely indoors, but it's kind of interesting. It's like cool on him and then warm in the back. Very interesting color dichotomy, right? And then you get this slightly warm fill light. So the fill light has a sort of color to it, right? So I would say this is the key light right here. And then this fill light has a temperature to it. It's kind of warm. It's foreshadowing, right? So it's not strong, but it's kind of warm. We've studied this one before, right? This has no fill light. Really, he's basically top lit and almost, I think there's a light like on the top and the sides of him. I don't really know how they got the lighting. I haven't studied, the placement of lights, but I can understand how it's being made. And there's obviously no light in front of him. He's kind of backlit and toplit, I would say, right? And so making the front of his face basically completely in shadow. And here is one from The Courier. I really like this one because this one is an example of low key, low contrast, right? You might have also heard of major, minor. Those terms kind of confuse me. So I just like to say like low key, high contrast, low key, low contrast, And so you can see here, uh, um, he's in shadow. There's obviously no fill light. There could have been some fill light, maybe lightening some of his face, but not really. He's just in shadow, and then the source of light is in front of him. It's not quite affecting him, just a little bit of him, right? The movie The Courier with Benedict, what's Joe Cumberbatch, Benedict Cumberbatch, has a lot of good lighting as well. And here from the Joker, right? So here you can see has a little bit more fill light, but it's still a low key painting. Okay. You can see that key light is this blue light. And we go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's the motivating light source because there's blue light all around him. But there's a warmer fill light coming here that's just warming up his face a little bit, not as strong as a key light, right? They didn't need to have that. And that would make his face even more in shadow, right? So showing all kinds of low-key examples. I'm just going to show a few more. Here's some underlit faces. Creates quite a creepy mood versus toplit or rimlit, right? This one in Only God Forgives. Really crazy. Now, this is multiple light sources, but at its core, he's simplified. He's just, he's backlit almost, as in the lighting is all coming from behind him and lighting the edges of his body. Here's another one right here with Ryan Gosling, right? All this is kind of crazy lighting. So I'm kind of showing like now we're kind of pushing it even more and probably adding multiple light sources. So this is a little bit more advanced. I'm just going to show you guys for the fun of it. Here's a little bit more standard, right? We have a rim light. We have a foggy background to simplify value choices, but the area of highest contrast is on this dude right here. The Green Knight, really like this film, mentioned it before. Key light coming from the top, right? They're all top lit. And you can see just by analyzing the planes of which the characters are lit, right? So you can see that her head is being lit. Not so much her face though. The face is in shadow, but you get a little bit of fill light that's just lighting up her face a little bit in the bottom. It's not completely in shadow. Okay.